might not have recognized me today, so I'm not wearing my nice blue t-shirt like last week. But we do have some great models over here. If you'd like one of those t-shirts, remember that the Reconciling team is selling those as we move towards next month. And as we talked about next month, our Jubilee starts October 1st, but we have some like pre-Jubilee things. Part of it is being done by the Reconciling Committee, but next, on the 15th of next month is a big day for a couple of different reasons. Our Archives and History team are bringing all of our elders together and having a big celebration of that, and including Dick George will be here that day. He was our second pastor. And so that's a good thing, isn't it? Also that day, Ben Hugh will be here to be able to play. He's doing a guitar, not at the same event. And so get the information about him and come and see that. The last guitarist we had here was just fabulous, so make sure you come for that event as well. You will love that. When I was growing up, one of my favorite games, one of the games we played a lot in my neighborhood, my house was kind of the neighborhood hangout, because there were already 9 of us, and so a few more didn't matter that much. And so people would just come over and we'd play right there, and we would play different types of hide and seek games. Have you played those? Right? My favorite one was where I got to hide and everyone had to come find me. And I felt like, you know, some of the people, when they played that game, they would hide just long enough to be seen so they wouldn't go chase people. I didn't care about chasing people. I wanted them to not find me. So one of my favorite times was when I went way, way away so that they were looking all over, and then I snuck back in and went and hid underneath the front stairs where that was the base. So that's where everyone was supposed to run back to, but I hid underneath there, and they were looking all over everywhere else for me, but I was trying not to. They're right above me, complaining about how they can't find me. I learned that I'm kind of an exception. Most people like being found. Most people like being seen. Most people enjoy when you uncover their hiddenness. Because hiding, that stuff that we have to hide, that sometimes is forced upon us, sometimes comes as a burden. And the hard part about it is that other people kind of like it when you're hidden, because they somehow benefit from your hiddenness. But it leaves someone out in the dark, in the cold, left alone when they need to be seen. Our movie today is called Hidden Figures, and it is about 3 amazingly courageous black women in the 1960s. And their struggle to be seen, their struggle to find a voice. Their names are Dorothy, Catherine, and Mary. And I'd like to introduce you to Dorothy, first of all.
We don't want any trouble in here.
No, I'm not having any trouble.
What are you here for?
A book.
There are books in the cupboard section.
It doesn't have what I'm looking for.
Well, that's just the way it is.
That's just the way it is. You see, when we ignore someone who's hidden and try to keep it just the way it is, someone is left out in the dark and cold. Whenever we do that, someone gets lost in that void that we create by seeing only so far, by seeing only a community that benefits one side more than the whole. Remember when you've been forgotten, when you've been overlooked, when you've been pushed aside, and do you remember the person who spoke into that space of loneliness and said, "No, I see you"? Remember the gift they gave to you by seeing you in that moment? the person who helped you to begin to discover your true value, not because they gave you that value, but because they opened you up to seeing it and becoming it again. These three women that we're going to talk about today have so much value. But sometimes they need to find that out themselves. So let me introduce you to the other two ladies, Mary and then Catherine.
If we alter the exterior from smooth to corrugated, the capsule might have more stability, but the friction it is under during re-entry, most shield erosion occurs on the posterior side abutting the retro boosters. Conclusion?
The area closest to the boosters is closest to the heat. Coupled with rising temperature on re-entry, the contact softens. We could consider another fastener than the bolts.
Yes. Yes. There is another opening in the engineer training program.
Flathead ribbons would reduce wind drag.
Mary, a person with engineer's mind should be an engineer. You can't be a computer the rest of your life.
Mr. Zelinsky, I'm a Negro woman. I'm not going to entertain the impossible.
And I'm a Polish Jew whose parents died in a Nazi prison camp. Now I'm standing beneath a spaceship that's going to carry an astronaut to the stars. I think we can say, we are living the impossible. Let me ask you, if you were a white male, would you wish to be an engineer?
I wouldn't have to. I'd already be one.
Skirts must be worn past the knee. Sweaters are preferred to blouses. No jewelry. A simple pearl necklace is the exception. Your supervisor is Mr. Al Harrison, director of the Space Test Group. He'll write research, prove calculations, and so forth. Do not talk to Mr. Harrison unless he talks to you. Not many computers last more than a few days. He's been through a dozen in as many months. Come on, keep up. Things move fast around here. Your clearance. They've never had a colored one here before, Catherine. Don't embarrass me.
How often do we speak a message like Mrs. Mitchell spoke there? Don't embarrass me. Not because we're trying to be condescending or bad or anything like that, but because we choose to ignore, choose to overlook, choose to not see that other person. Mrs. Mitchell goes to Dorothy, the lady from the first clip. And at one point, see, Dorothy, Mrs. Mitchell is the supervisor, but Dorothy is the one who does all the work for part of her job, for a lot of her job. And Mrs. Mitchell overlooks her a lot. And she looks at her at one point and says, Dorothy, you know, despite what you think, I have nothing against y'all. And Dorothy says, I know. I know you probably believe that. You see, when we have our eyes closed, we believe things that aren't quite true. When we are closing our eyes to the person in front of us, we miss truth about them and around them. And we need to see that truth, partially because they also hide truth, whoever that other person is. You saw Mr. Z do the opposite with Mary. Mary had truths about herself. And Mr. Z tried to have her expand, help her to expand. A person with an engineer's mind should do an engineer's job. And it's not that the work that Mary was doing was wrong. She was a calculator, one who did all the numbers, all the math for those who were doing other things, but she needed to be doing those other things because that's who she was. But you saw the obstacles she saw in front of her. I'm a black woman. I can't do that. Mr. Z said, I think we can live the impossible. So the question really comes down to, in each moment, with each person in your life, are you an obstacle, like Mrs. Mitchell, or are you an encourager, like Mr. Z? Are you speaking words of encouragement and help, or are you somehow ignoring and pushing away and holding down that other person? Are you, at worst cases, ignoring them, expecting their help, but not acknowledging who they are in your life? Think about your garbage man. Do you know that person's name? Choosing to see the other one can be one of the greatest gifts we can give to each other. To be known is to be free. To not be known. What's the change we put on all those people around our lives? Some of them that we may never know. The one who walks in front of you at the crosswalk. The one who checks out your groceries. Do you see them? Do you acknowledge them? Do you value them? See, we all have enough obstacles in our life. We don't need to put more chains on each other. Two of the characters in here are Al Harrison and Paul Stafford. And they deal with Catherine on a regular basis. And they do a lot of putting chains on her as she comes into that, passes through that door as their calculator.
How did you know the Redstone couldn't support orbital flight? That's classified information. It's top secret.
Well, it's no secret why the Redstone tests keep failing. It's fine for suborbital flight, but it can't handle the weight of the capsule and push it into space. Numbers don't lie.
And you figure all that out with this. After that is redacted.
But what's there tells the story if you read between the lines. The distance from launch to orbit, we know. Redstone mass, we know. Mercury capsule weight, we know. And the speeds are there in the data.
You did the math.
Yes, sir. I look beyond.
How do you know about the Atlas rocket? That's not math. That data's not here, like you said. It's classified.
I held it up to the light.
Held it up to the light.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there it is. Atlas. What's your name?
Catherine Goldman.
You're a spy, Catherine?
Am I what?
So are you a Russian spy?
No, sir. I'm not Russian. She's not Russian, sir.
All right, then we have nothing to lose here. Give her everything she needs to work on Shepard's trajectories without redaction. You clear now?
Are we sure about this?
What's the issue, Paul? You heard her. You're not a spy.
I just don't think it's a good idea.
You know what I think's a good idea? Darker Acre. I think it's a good idea. Could you pass it along?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, sir.
This interrogation's over.
Catherine says two really important things that we should apply in our life all the time. I looked beyond. You see, because when we look at a person, it's so easy to see whatever they present or whatever facade we're putting between the two of us. And we have to look beyond those things and see something more than just that. And then she said that other thing. I held it up to the light. When you see that other person, do you see them through that light of God that flows into them? Or are you seeing just whatever humanness they are? Whatever things are in your way, or whatever they can give to you, whatever they are as a human being, instead of whatever they are as some of God's light in this world? Are you seeing all of that when you see that other? Louise Diamond said this: we cannot make right relationship if we cannot know each other truly. This means we need to make authentic human contact, heart to heart and mind to mind, and discover how we each make sense to each other. Only then can we cross the mountain of lies to find a better place to build peace. We each have the truth of our experience. That is, how we experience something true, something is true for us. And seeing through the lens of our myths, we must learn to reach out for all the truths and allow ourselves to be enriched rather than threatened by another person's views. Again and again in this movie, I was drawn to the other characters in the movie, and not because these three aren't amazing, and the story is about them, and I don't want to take that away because they are incredible, but these other folks were the ones who listened or were the obstacles in their path. The ones who helped clear ways for them or that built walls for them to have to climb over. And they chose to step into those roles, sometimes in very difficult ways, unusual ways, in order to help someone climb forward, move towards something. Mr. Z helped Mary, but it wasn't the first and the only time that Mary needed someone else to see her. At one point she goes into the judge. She has to approve her to be able to go to an all-white school, and she said, I can't change the color of my skin, so I have no other choice than to be first. And I need someone to help me with that. Somebody needs to be listening if someone else is going to be heard. Someone needs to have their eyes open if someone else is going to be seen. Sam this morning at first service told this story about one of his fourth graders who one day showed up on his house to give him a Christmas present. He said, but how'd you know that this was my house? He said, because my dad is the mailman who delivers your mail. But he didn't see him because it was just the mailman. And now he was this kid's father. Who do we see? Who do we listen to? How do we help people to discover themselves? Who do you say that I am? Jesus asked his disciples, and you know what they did? They told the old stories. Well, maybe you're Elijah, maybe you're Jeremiah, maybe you're one of the prophets, maybe you're John the Baptist, those old stories. But Peter said, no, you're something more. I see the possibilities in you. And isn't that what the Christ light in all of us is supposed to do? Is to see and speak the possibilities of every single person. Catherine meets this young man who's interested in her, and in their first conversation, as they're talking about who they are and what they do, she tells about working at NASA, and he says this: they let women handle that sort of, and he stopped because he knows he's not said the right thing. And he comes back later on and he looks at her and he says, Catherine, I'm so sorry for underestimating you or any woman like you. See, people can be our biggest obstacles. We can be the biggest obstacles to each other. Or we can be the biggest asset, the biggest help, the biggest way that people begin to discover who it is that they can be and help them to discover the way to get there. We can do it through a hand up, or a needed resource, or maybe even a kick in the pants. But there's all kinds of ways that we can be in each other's lives, and it starts by noticing them, by seeing them, and by speaking the words of who they truly are. I heard a saying this week, and I can't even remember where, but just this stuck with me. It says, if I could hear it in the music, that it had to exist somewhere. See, your job, our job, is to sing that music to each other so that somebody somehow hears it and is able to discover the somewhere that it truly exists. To speak that message of truth to every single person we see. But to do that, we have to be listening for and hearing their voices, because there's so much that will keep us from hearing them unless we actively choose to see and hear different. What blinds you? Some things are obvious: politics, religion. But there's other things that also hide. Economic levels, employment, things we do for fun, our busyness, our families. All of these things can blind us to the person around us. So I wanted to tell you just about some of the voices I heard this week. It's hard not to hear the voices screaming from South Texas because of a hurricane. And if you'd like to help with that, UMCOR is already there. And if you write out a check that just says Texas hurricane and put UMCOR, you'll be able to hear part of, you'll be able to help those voices be heard better. I heard it on Friday with the transgender ban on the ban on transgender new recruits. Maybe that's the voice you hear, and you choose to do something about it. I heard it when, through the week, I saw a movie from my friends at Groundswell. They said there's a movie coming out that will be on PBS Global. And they're asking people to host parties. And the name of the movie is Care. What it's about seniors and about caring for seniors. Because you know, sometimes those people who used to be so valuable in our head become invisible if we don't stop ourselves. And that's what it's about. And so maybe you'd like to be able to host a party, to be able to open people's eyes. Maybe you want to hear those voices. I got a thing from Tihan that's here every single week, but sometimes we forget about them, and they are asking for somebody who's good with people, someone who loves to be of support, someone who can reach out as a volunteer and help their organization. I sat on Thursday with at the PCIC meeting with people from the Community Food Bank. And I've known about the Community Food Bank, but it's just the first time I've sat. So I sat with Eric, and I love that name because it's my son's name as well. So we had an instant connection, and all of a sudden I realized that I had been ignoring him and that organization. But in September, they have their hunger walk. If you go and walk for hunger, that'll be at Keno Park on September 23rd. All this information is on this sheet of paper. So I want to tell you about one more thing. On Wednesday, I was with a group of people that are interested about border concerns. And Casa Mariposa, the lady from there, sat right next to me. She said, let me just tell you about Casa Mariposa in case you don't know. Casa Mariposa is a home for people who leave the detention center because of immigration issues, and they have no other place to go. And by and large, these are LGBT people that are at risk of all kinds of things. They give them a space to be able to be safe, to be able to take the next steps. And they're losing their lease. And they're saying, what do we do next? I said, we can help do that. We can help. So she gave me this flyer that talks about a solidarity dinner on September the 9th. I want you to go. So there's a whole bunch of places where somebody spoke out of my silence, out of my vision, outside of where I had been seeing people. They're there looking for you. They're hoping that you hear. The question is, will you? If you take the time to notice them, if you take the time to see them, if you take the time to listen to them, who knows what they may become? But the hard part is that in noticing them, they will also change you. They will draw you to become something different. Mrs. Mitchell, that supervisor, always looked at Dorothy and told her nothing but Dorothy. And then one day she walks in and hands her a slip that says, "This is your new job assignment." And it says that Dorothy's going to be recognized for what she's already been, supervisor. And as she leaves, Dorothy says, "Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell." And Mrs. Mitchell looks back and says, "You're quite welcome, Mrs. Bond," and recognizes her for the first time. We need to see all those people. Al Harrison chooses to see Catherine.
Where the hell have you been? Everywhere I look, you're not where I need you to be. It's not my imagination. Now, where the hell do you go every day?
To the bathrooms.
The bathroom. To the damn bathroom. For 40 minutes a day? What are you doing there? T-minus serious. I put a lot of faith in you.
There's no bathroom for me here.
What do you mean there's no bathroom for you here?
There is no bathroom. There are no colored bathrooms in this building, or any building outside the West Campus, which is half a mile away. Did you know that? I have to walk to Timbuktu just to relieve myself. And I can't use one of the handy bikes. Picture that, Mr. Harrison. My uniform, skirt below my knees, my heels, and a simple string of pearls. Well, I don't own pearls. Lord knows you don't pay colors enough to afford pearls. And I work like a dog, day and night, living off of coffee from a pot none of you want to touch. So, excuse me if I have to go to the restroom a few times a day.
What label do you need to peel off the coffee pot? What is it that is keeping you from seeing the whole person in front of you? What is it that's making it so that you are blind to them? Choose to see them again. At one point, Catherine forces her way into a meeting that she belongs in, that she needs to be in. And Al Harrison sees that she needs to be there. But in the middle of the meeting, somebody asks him, confronts him with, "What are you going to do? How exactly are you going to calculate the go, no-go figures?" And Al sits there thinking, slightly embarrassed, slightly angry. And he sees the chalk in front of him. He takes it, and he turns to Catherine. He says, "Catherine, have a go at it." Because he knows that she can show those hidden figures. He shows that he knows that she has the ability and the strength to be able to show that. And he gives her the opportunity. He sees her, and he allows her to become something amazing. Andre Thomas did an amazing job taking a poem by Langston Hughes and turning it into this song. He was one of your professors, right? So he's who turned him into something wonderful for us. He wrote, "Of such I dream, of such I dream." When we see that other, do we dream with them? When we see that person who we've overlooked, do we see something wonderful in them? Open your eyes. See the people around you. I want to finish where we started with the youth covenant. They have two amazing lines at the beginning and the end. You are made of stardust. Live accordingly. Now let me just change that a little bit. They, all those hidden figures, they are made of stardust. Live accordingly. And then at the end, wonder. Set aside judgment for deep listening. In here, in this world, listening is as important as speaking. Amen? Let's stand and sing this song together. Notice people. See them. Speak words of encouragement and hope. Speak words of miracle and light. Speak and see so that they become the wonder that they are. Amen? Amen.